a Briton looking forward to the pomp and ceremony of a coronation, planting coronation trees, making coronation mugs, stamps, and generally expressing its enthusiasm for the popular central figure of that coming coronation. No summer could ever be subdued by a mere handful of clouds. What did you do that summer? If you were in Britain, maybe you went to Henley, or you didn't. Maybe you went to the bowling greens or the cricket fields, or took to the road cycling, motoring, or hiking, or you didn't. Maybe you took a trip across to Ireland to watch a crack motor race and collect autographs from such enthusiasts as Prince Eire. Or perhaps you found the noise of exhausts too much for you. Maybe Cowes, where you could see the towering canvas of the Endeavour, one of the giant contenders for the America Cup. Then there was another pleasure yacht, the Narlin. Quietly, she slipped her moorings and quitted Britain for the sunnier climes of the Mediterranean, soon to be joined by a king and his guests. Among them, a Mrs. Wallace Simpson. July, August, and the Olympics ran their courses. There were some spectacular efforts put forward in the name of international sportsmanship. Those are the long legs of New Zealand's Lovelock, winning one of the few victories that fell to the British Commonwealth that year, the 1,500 meters. But though the nations in the name of peace publicly paid tribute to champions, elsewhere they privately championed causes. Over France's southern frontier came sounds of strife and streams of refugees. For Spain was a land divided against itself. The Spanish rightists rose against the newly elected government. There was an explosion of passion in a country sharply contrasted between poverty and wealth, left and right. At first, the government maintained control. Then, from Spanish Morocco, the governor of the Canaries, a General Franco, brought to the rebels reinforcement and leadership. And then Spain was in for agony. In that bitter struggle for a country, other nations took sides. The Franco forces received aid from Germany and Italy, the government from Soviet Russia. The lineup of future opponents was taking form. But for the British, these clouds didn't appear half as dark as those nearer home. Parliament assembled, and wondering crowds watched as ministers and members came and went. Crisis, the papers said in banner headlines. For Britain had found herself faced by a constitutional dilemma unprecedented even in her long and eventful history. The nation looked to the King and to Stanley Baldwin's government. There were for and there were against. Here's an opinion from Lord Marley, Deputy Speaker of the House of Lords.
The proposed marriage of King Edward and Mrs. Simpson has raised the constitutional question in Great Britain as to whether the marriage is a public or a private act. If it is a public act, the King must follow the advice of his ministers, and then the problem of abdication or following their advice arises in an acute form. In my opinion, the King's marriage should be a private act and considered as such. In this case, we should be able to avoid a constitutional matter.
And so the crisis dragged its length until at last, over the radio, a king made a statement telling of an issue already decided.
At long last, I am able to say a few words of my own. I have never wanted to withhold anything, but until now, it has not been constitutionally possible for me to speak. You all know the reasons which have impelled me to renounce the throne. But you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love. And now we all have a new king. I wish him and you, his people, happiness and prosperity with all my heart. God bless you all. God save the king.
Yes, it was quite a year for stamps, a time full of signs and omens and writings on the wall. Many ignored what happened in 1936 and hoped for the best, but others read, marked, and made preparation. Already the converted to the new creeds were casting their gold, their rings, their honor into the melting pot of war, dedicating their iron and steel and their plowshares in the name of self-expression, nationalism, Lebensraum, or just plain ambition. Already in Spain and Ethiopia, the guns were heard. First drumbeats of a tattoo that soon most of the world was to hear. At the League of Nations, the Lion of Judah climbed the dais to plead for his country. And although we didn't fully realize it then, there, but for the grace of God, went ourselves. One night in 1936, London's Crystal Palace went up in flames. No one knew how it started, and no one knew how to stop it. But it was as though the fates were giving a warning of all they held in store by sending a monument to prosperous, complacent Victorian Britain crashing down in hellfire. That's how many remember the time of the Three Kings, the time the palace burned.
Oh, life is bad, gloom and misery everywhere, stormy weather, just can't get my poor self together. It's raining on